We are getting close to the 17th CSGO Major since the game released. So for that reason, I've decided to go back and relive every major finals and kind of rank them all. So let's hop in our time machine and roll the years back to 2013. Welcome to Dreamhack Winter 2013. The prize pool was a measly $250,000. Yeah, I scoff at that number. And the finals of the first CSGO Major was Fnatic versus Ninjas in Pajamas. There's a few players that you guys might actually recognize. So there's JW and Flusha on Fnatic, and then Freiburg, Forest, and Get Right on NIP. And this is where they all started their journey to legend status in CSGO. But it was a hard-fought battle between both teams across Old Dust 2, Old Inferno, and Old Train. The meta at this point was so new that it was mostly just down to gun skill and less about utility usage. But ultimately, Fnatic ended up winning on map 3. Overall, it was a good final considering the game was so new, so I'm gonna give it a B tier. Next, Major. Fast forwarding to a few months later in 2014, we now have the major that gave us the sticker that made so many people rich, Katowice 2014. And this was the first major that introduced team sticker capsules, and they went with the cleanest design to date. So NAP made it to the grand finals yet again, but this time they went against Virtus Pro. Of course, they replaced Pronax with Exist. And Virtus Pro had Taz, Neo, Snacks, Bialy, and of course, the Papa himself, Pasha Biceps. Map 1 took place on Mirage, which is shockingly similar to the Mirage we have now, with just a few minor differences. Virtus Pro had a dominant victory to bring it to Old Inferno. NIP put up a good fight, but it wasn't enough, and VP won their first major, putting NIP in an awkward spot where they were 0-2 at majors. Since this matchup was pretty one-sided, I'm gonna give it a C tier, but there were some great moments. But later that year was ESL 1 Cologne 2014, and it was another NIP versus Fnatic grand final. Started off on Cobblestone, which was the first time that people had a chance to get a finals souvenir Dragon Lore. But NIP ended up winning map 1, and they went on to Old Cash. Fnatic ended up winning that one, bringing it to the final map, which was Old Inferno. And this was where Inferno really started to establish itself as a legendary map 3. And it was a close game, but NIP finally won their first major. Thanks to the whole storyline going on since the very first major, this one definitely deserves an A tier. Anyways, next major. And there was one final major in 2014, and that was Dreamhack Winter 2014. Yet again, it was a final with NIP, and they went against Team LDLC with NBK, Hiroshima, Happy, Shocks, and Smiths. And it all started on Old Dust 2. LDLC took it away, but on Old Inferno, NIP dominated, bringing it all down to Overpass. In typical grand finals fashion, it went all the way to overtime and Team LDLC picked it up. And fun fact, this was the major where the infamous Olaf boost happened. Anyways, A tier. The next major was ESL 1 Katowice 2015, and again, it was a Fnatic versus NIP grand final. So I guess you could say this was the Swedish era of CSGO. Because, I mean, the Swedish teams were just dominant. The rosters changed quite a bit since their first showdown, and this time on NAP, there was Get Right, Freiburg, and Forest. They all played alongside Alu. And Fnatic stuck with Flush and JW, but also picked up Crims and Olafmeister. Map 1 was Dust 2, where Fnatic picked it up. Map 2 was on Cash, where NIP pulled it through. And the decider was yet again on Inferno, where Fnatic pulled through their second major win. And after making it to the finals of all 5 majors so far, NIP would never make it to the finals ever again after this. I'll give it a B tier because this was the first time that Olafmeister made it to the major finals, without getting disqualified. Cologne 2015 was later that year, and the juggernaut Fnatic made it to the finals. And again, this time they played against Envious, which had Happy, NBK, and Hiroshima from LDLC. Plus Apex and Kenny S. Map 1 was on Dust 2, where Fnatic ended up winning in overtime. And then they moved on to Cobblestone, which had so much potential in terms of skins, but Kenny S wasn't able to get an MVP medal and ended up going 4-19. So the dreams of a Kenny S grand finals souvenir Dragon Lore just never happened. Regardless, this was Fnatic's second major win in a row and their third over. So it was fair to say that they were the best team in the world at the time. So the match deserves a B tier. Dreamhack Cluj-Napoca was the final major of 2015 and also the last major with the insignificant prize pool of $250,000. But this time, Envious made it to the grand finals again to face off against Natus Vincere. But without Simple, their odds weren't too great. Map 1 was incredibly close at 16-14 for Envious on Train. And as a repeat to Cologne, they played Cobblestone again. And at last, Kenny S had a solid performance and pulled through the MVP medal and guaranteed one of the most expensive skins to ever touch the game at that point. NBK pulled through the carry, and this was the second French major win. But this will go down in history with an A tier rank. 2016 was the year that Valve finally increased the major prize pools to $1 million. And again, Navi made it to the grand finals, but they went against Luminosity, a Brazilian team, and at the time they had Fallen, Fur, Taco, Coldzera, and FNX. Map 1 was on Mirage, where Luminosity pulled it through in overtime, and next up was Overpass, where Luminosity had the most dominant victory in major history up until that point, and they won 16-2. I guess you could say Navi didn't stand a chance. And Brazil won their first major, and overall, definitely a B tier. ESL 1 Cologne was the second major of 2016, and this time under a new org, SK went on to play against Team Liquid. And this is the first and only North American versus South American major finals. This was also the first time an NA team actually made it to the finals. So Liquid had JDM, Nitro, Hiko, Elige, and the legendary Simple. And map 1 was on Train, where SK destroyed with a 16-7 score, and map 2 was Cobblestone with a very similar scoreline. But this was the end of the Brazilian era. But who would take their crown and go on to become the most dominant team in the history of CSGO? By the way, another B tier. At E-League Atlanta 2017, the grand finals was Virtus Pro, and they faced off against a new upcoming team called Astralis. With a few unknown players at the time, Device, Dupree, Zipix, Glaive, and Kiajer ERB, map 1 went the way of Virtus Pro, and everybody was expecting them to just close it out. But Astralis didn't go down without a fight. Astralis pulled it through on Overpass, and the final map was Train, and it could have gone either way, but Astralis ended up bringing it home, and they won their first CSGO major. Definitely an S tier performance from the underdogs. PGL Krakow 2017 was up next, and it was Gambit versus Immortals. Map 1 was Cobblestone, where Immortals pulled it through. Map 2 was Train, and Gambit ended up winning that map, and it all came down to map 3, where Gambit won it all. Another B tier. E-League Boston 2018 was the second time a North American team made it to the major finals. Cloud9 with Tarek, Skadoodle, Automatic, Stewie 2K, and Rush. They went against FaZe Clan with Nitro, Guardian, Olaf Meister, Kerrigan, and Rain. Wait, did I say Nitro? I meant Nico. FaZe took Mirage, but it was extremely close at 16-14. Map 2 was Overpass, where Cloud9 ended up pulling it through. And of course, for map 3, the legendary map Inferno was picked. FaZe started off really strong and it looked like they were going to pull it through, but Cloud9 pulled off one of the most incredible comebacks in the history of the game. No, in the history of esports. And they brought it to overtime, and after 94 grueling minutes of intense action, Cloud9 was able to pull it through, and they became the first North American team to win a CSGO major. And this, in my opinion, was the best major finals ever. It was a certified Hood Classic, and it definitely deserves an S tier. No doubt about that. The Faceit London 2018 major was up next, and it was Astralis versus Navi. And this is the first time that Simple made it to the finals with Navi. But Astralis had such incredible teamwork, they ended up taking map 1 on Nuke and closed it out on Overpass. And to be honest, Simple didn't have his best performance. But this was the second major win for Astralis, and it was only the beginning. B tier. At Katowice 2019, Astralis made it to the finals again, this time against ENCE. But during this major, ENCE was playing incredibly well, and the meme Easy for ENCE was born. Map 1 was Train, where Astralis pulled it through, and on map 2, Inferno, Astralis showed how dominant they could be with a 16-4 victory. But overall, since it didn't go to a third map, another B tier. Later that year was Starladder Berlin 2019, where yet again Astralis made it to the finals, and this time against Avantgarde, aka Team Jame. Map 1 was Inferno, where Astralis won 16-6, and map 2 was Dust 2, where they absolutely destroyed Avantgarde 16-5. This was where Astralis finally surpassed Fnatic for the most majors won, bringing their total to 4. So I think for that, we gotta give it an A tier. And last but not least, last year in 2021, the Pgl Stockholm Major happened. Literally the first major in 2 years, and it was Navi versus G2. Map 1 was Ancient, where Navi pulled it through, but it was an incredibly close match. And then for map 2, they played Nuke, where G2 made some incredible plays, Nico pulled off some godlike clutches, but it ended up going to overtime, where, let's be honest, Nico choked. Navi ended up pulling it through and finally won their first major thanks to Simple and also Bit. So that was every single major in CSGO so far, and in a few days, PGL Antwerp 2022 is going to start. For the first time in a while, it could literally go any way. Like, there's no teams that are currently truly dominant. CSGO's in a very competitive spot, and I'm really excited. But anyways, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe with the bell icon wrong if you haven't already. Anyways, it's Turbox, and remember, life is a mystery box. Stay safe, guys. Peace.